Hi, I'm Bill Kirchman. I'm the recycling coordinator for the town of Seekonk. And with me is one of my committee members, Paul Kutu, and he and I are going to discuss the items in front of us and whether or not they belong in the recycle container. But I did want to get started as to give some background as to why we're doing this. It's the month of November, and it's a time to remember about what we should do to preserve the earth and help our planet. We have America Recycles Day, which is November 15th, and it allows us to remember what we should be looking ahead to the future of the next year. Each year we go ahead and assess what we did this past year and how did we help out getting things recycled, getting things planned out, and less waste. If you want to know how to recycle things, if you go to the DPW, the Department of Public Works, and check under recycling, you will see that it is listed, the single stream recycling is listed on that particular department website. Follow it as best as you can. So now let me go ahead and introduce Paul Kutu, who's a longtime member of the recycling committee, and he'll explain how he looks at this.
Hello. Well, we're going to go through this table and show items that have been a problem with recycling versus trashing. But before we begin, I just want to say a few comments. First of all, recycling is always a work in progress. The reason is it depends not only on technology, but also economic factors and, of course, government regulations. So what we find to do now may be different in the future. Let me also say that although in Massachusetts recycling is fairly uniform, there is some minor variation between localities. What we're going to talk about here is what is done in Seekonk. The other point I want to make is that there are two errors really we're dealing with. One error is for people to put recyclable objects into the trash. An example of this is an empty beer can. When you do that, you're wasting, in this case, aluminum. In addition, you're adding to the burden of the landfill. The other error is to put items that don't belong in the recyclable bin into that bin. When you do that, it contaminates the whole load. When it gets to the processing center, it's more difficult to sort out. In the worst case, the entire load will be diverted to a landfill. So it's important to put trash in trash and recyclable objects in the recyclable bin. Okay, Bill, let's get going.
Okay.
Let's start off with paper. This is a problem area. This is cardboard, right? But what do we do with this?
It's cardboard, but the problem is it has a wax covering to it. So it's really not able to be recycled like we would do regular brown cardboard. So the only thing we can do is to put it in the trash. I did want to make one other point that I didn't make earlier, is that the state would like to go ahead and help us decide where things go and get everyone following the same path. And in our particular instance, the Department of Environmental Protection went ahead and they formulated a website called Recycle Smart. And on Recycle Smart, they indicated various items, the items like we're going to talk about this morning. And what's going to happen is that it will tell you, well, you have this item like cans, for instance, and it will tell you what you should be doing with the cans. Not throwing them in the trash, but make sure they're fairly clean, and you put them in recycling. Those instructions are done on a website, like I said, Recycle Smart MA, which stands for Massachusetts, .org. And you can go ahead and pull that up, and there's actually a search site so that you put in the item that you have and say, well, gee, what do I do with this? And it's simple. It's going to say, well, if you have the item that you describe, then below it will give the description of what you should do. Like, should it be put in trash, or it should be recycled or it should be donated or given away. A lot of things are the more they build on this database, the better it gets. So what we'd like to do is just start out. We started out with the milk carton. And what else do you have for us, Paul?
Okay, well, the holidays are coming, right? Thanksgiving and Christmas. And this is wrapping paper. I think a lot of people put wrapping paper to go in recycling, but is that right, Bill?
No, not really, because again, it's similar to the milk carton, is that it has a covering to it, and this is also very thin and near impossible to recycle. So wrapping paper, like you'd have for our presents and gifts, they just can't be recycled. That has to go in trash.
All right. Bill, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of requests for money from organizations, and they often send these labels. And the labels are nice. They have your address and so forth. The problem is I have so many, I wind up throwing them away. Is that the right way, to throw them away or to put them in recycling?
Yeah, no, really, you really can't do anything with recycling these at all. You know, like I said, the paper is kind of waxy and covered, and too thin to be recycled, unfortunately.
All right, well.
Maybe we can get to something that we can
Okay,
recycle.
something we can recycle.
Okay.
Let's stay with this, Bill. This
All
is
right.
a paper bag.
Okay.
Can we just put this in the bin and it can be recycled?
Well, yes and no. The issue we have here is a mechanical one. The bag can be recycled, obviously, it's paper. But the issue comes on the handles. Now, if you can remove the handles, throw those away, then the bag is just fine. What happens with handles is that if they're attached to something, they get tangled within the equipment that's used to sort out the recycling material. So if you have anything tangling, we have something here, like, for example, we've got hangers. Now, hangers are great. They're metal, and it's something that should be, if I can hand that back to you, it's something that should be recyclable, and it is. The problem is it's so thin that it gets tangled up in the equipment, and that's unfortunate. So basically what has to happen is this has to go somewhere where they can use the steel and get rid of this. So it really has to go on a bulk exchange. You know, it has to go to a place where bulky items are collected, and then we can do something with them.
Okay, we're going to finish off the paper by talking about books. I know myself and other people donate to the library and so forth, but if a book's in bad shape, what do we do with the books, Bill?
Okay, well, with our examples, we have two kinds of books right now. This is a soft cover book that's recyclable, and the pages are terrific for paper recycling, and this can go in recycling. With a hardcover book, though, that's a little more of a problem. The pages are fine, but the bindings have an issue about getting them separated, and they jam up the machines. So it's one of these where if you could get rid of the paper, take the paper and move that over and put that in with the paperwork and toss the bindings away, that would be fine.
All right. I would also add about books that in addition to donating to libraries, there are book bins. One happens to be at the corner of Arcade and Fall River Avenue, very close to this studio. Another one is in the back of the Rehoboth Library. And by the way, Savers in East Providence will take books, and if you donate enough, you get a coupon. All right, let's move on to plastic, Bill.
Okay.
Plastic is a problem. I just want to say that of all the things we recycle, plastic is the most controversial. There is a myth that a lot of plastic is recycled. In fact, it's a small percentage. Greenpeace did a recent study of 2021 plastics. About 51 tons were made in the United States last year, of which 2.4 was recycled, less than 5%. So plastic is a big problem, and to attack it, we have to work in many ways. Recycling is one way, but not the major way. But anyways, Bill, recycling. This
right.
is an example, right?
Right. Here's an example. It does show a symbol on the back, and this can be recycled. The issue we have is here's a food container, and food containers are notoriously bad for recycling, particularly if they're black in color. So all you can do with something like this is to put it in your trash.
All right, this is another container. I guess
Right.
that's not a problem either, even though it's a chemical.
Right. It does have a symbol on the back, and it can be recycled, but it should be cleaned thoroughly if you could. Rinse it out, cover it, and put it in your recycle bin. That's fine.
All right. Peanut butter is in the plastic container, which generally is recyclable, but there's a problem. It's difficult to clean.
Yeah.
So what do you do if that is not clean?
Yeah, unfortunately, recyclables, if they're not clean, are a waste as far as trying to recycle them. And something as difficult as peanut butter, that's typically a hard spot. You're almost inclined to just toss it because it's almost impossible to get it cleaned out the way you would like it so that it could be recycled.
All right. This comes with 6 packs, and
Yeah.
we don't do anything, right, Bill?
No, unfortunately, you can't recycle this. Basically, what you want to do is cut these so that nothing can be caught in it, such as a small bird or animal, and it just goes in the trash. It's just not stretchy enough to be recycled.
All right. Bill, sometimes people think anything that's plastic, a toy or something like this is
Yeah.
a sprinkler that's broken. This is all plastic, but can it go into the recycle bin?
No, not really. This material you can see is what they call rigid plastic. And rigid plastic used to have a market when they sent a lot of things to China. And now China won't accept them because they have enough recycling of their own. And so all you can do with this is to toss it because it's too hard to recycle it. Literally, it's too hard. And because you got to be able to stretch it and so that you can rework it. So that's about all you can do with this. It's a good example, though.
Before we leave plastics, I want to mention something that's on Recycle Smart that's a little bit peculiar. These are 2 plastic containers for medication,
Right.
but they're handled differently.
That's right. Yeah, we have 2 of them. One is a prescription bottle, and the other one is just a medication that's sold, or medication or chemical sold over the counter. Well, this one is made of a different type of plastic than this one is. This one is recyclable and should be tossed in with the recycled container. This one is harder. The top is hard. Plus, recycling this material just doesn't work, unfortunately. You either have rigid plastic prescription bottles, or you have prescription bottles that are flexible like this, but neither one of them are subject to being recycled. So all you can do is toss them away, unfortunately.
All right, so there are some rules that apply to every category, like the paper, recycled paper has to be trashed, black plastic has to be thrown away, as most toys and plastic objects.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not always as easy as it looks.
Okay. Well, moving on to glass.
Okay.
So this is a glass jar. It's
Yes.
clean. That goes in the recyclable, right?
That can go in the recycle bin. Yeah, it just can't. The whole point was this is fine. What do we worry about for a glass is that it can be easily broken. And if broken glass just doesn't go in the recycle bin. A bottle can, such as a wine bottle, a milk bottle, anything along those lines, those can. But and this can, because you've got a top, it's pretty well structured so that it'll make it tough to break. By that I mean you don't have a flat edge that can chip or crack, so it makes it a lot easier.
All right, moving on to glass
Yeah.
bulbs.
Yeah.
Here we have 3 types, Bill. How are they
Right,
handled?
right. Okay. Now this is a regular incandescent bulb. That can be thrown in the trash. That's not a problem. It is just glass, but you really can't do anything about. The only way you can use anything from it is to break it, and broken glass just doesn't work. This is a compact fluorescent bulb. This has mercury in it. You can't throw it in your recycle bin, and you can't throw it in your trash. This needs to be sent to a special company that goes ahead and takes the mercury out and reprocesses it, because otherwise the mercury will contaminate the earth.
Now, Bill, people can bring this to the DPW, right?
That's right, yeah. Well, we encourage people to bring it to the DPW, and we'll go ahead and make sure it gets to the company that can process it. We do have companies on file.
All right, now DPW is not at the Town Hall building, it's on Fall River Avenue, right?
No, the DPW building is on Taunton Avenue, on
Taunton Avenue.
Route 44. Right now, it's the corner of Lake Street, and just drop it off there during business hours, and we'll make sure it gets to the right spot.
All right. We're going to move on now to metals. I think people realize that metals are precious and most of them are recycled. The problem is that the recycling may not be through the recycle bin. You may have to make other arrangements. For example, copper and iron. We have an iron piece here. These are valuable, but you can't put them in the bin, right, Bill?
Right. Yeah, the problem is these are bulky items, and they really need to go to a bulky waste spot. Now, I know that for Seekonk, they have bulky waste days once a month, and they can be dropped off then. They actually have a container that handles, they just want you to put metal in it. Okay.
All right. Also, there are commercial places that recycle metal. One of them is called Synergy, and it's across the street from the Seekonk Speedway. I've brought items there myself. If there's a lot of metal, you can actually get paid for bringing the metal. I usually just drop it off because I have a small quantity, but it's nice to be able to send it to a place where it's going to be recycled. That's Synergy, and it's across the street from the Seekonk Cinema. Mm-hmm. There's also places in Attleboro and I think in Taunton that take metal and recycle it. Mm-hmm. Aluminum, though, is something that we do put in the bin, right? These are all aluminum, right?
You're looking at a pie plate. It's very clean. It's made of simple aluminum. It definitely goes in the recycle bin.
As well as the foil.
And the foil, as long as it's clean, that's fine. It's fine. It's flexible. That's perfect for it. Right. Same thing with the cans. Cans are aluminum. As long as you clean them out, you can put them in the recycle bin. No problem.
All right, but Bill, this is a can, but it's an aerosol can.
Yeah, the problem with an aerosol can is it's under pressure. So the only way you can get rid of it is in the trash. Okay? If it has chemicals in it, if this is a pressured, say you have insect repellent, or you have bug spray where you use it to kill bugs that are flying around you, those you have to wait until Household Hazardous Waste Day, because it depends what the chemicals are inside of this container.
Okay, so toxic chemicals have to go to the Hazardous Waste Day collection.
Right. And we have that, generally we have hazardous waste collection in the spring, once a year, but it's free to the residents of Seekonk, and you just sign up for it.
All right. I know you do have to register, and there is a limit sometimes, so I always register early. Okay, Bill, now we're going to talk about some individual type categories. Here's batteries, Bill.
Okay.
People always ask, how do you get rid of batteries?
Okay. If they're simple alkaline batteries, these batteries you can't throw in the recycle bin. All that can happen is once they are discharged, you can toss them in the trash. because right now they're too small to be recycled. These do have elements in them that could be recycled, but they're in such a small container that it's not practical for the companies to recycle them. In this particular instance, we have a cadmium and mercury battery, and that definitely has to be held for a specialty recycler. Like I said, with mercury, and we talked about the fluorescent bulbs, that has to go to a particular company that does this type of work. And again, this is something that you drop off at the Department of Public Works. We have a facility that we use. We send them to the facility, and they go ahead and recycle them.
Bill, is there a charge when people drop off things like that?
No, not for batteries, not for bulbs. There's no charge.
Okay.
Because we want them to be disposed of properly and not have anything happen to them.
Okay. I put this piece of branch here as a reminder to people, right, that nothing like leaves, grass, or
Right.
branches go into the trash or the recyclable bin, right, Bill?
Right. Yard waste, there's no need for that to go in the trash or recycling. We pick up yard waste. The town picks it up at curbside twice a year. We're actually in the midst of a pickup period for people who rake leaves and take their branches. They're picked up by the DPW.
Okay, but when it's not curbside pickup, which is most of the year,
Right.
what people have to do is bring it to the transfer station, right?
Transfer station will take it. Yeah, the transfer station is open each weekday, and the hours are posted on the town website. And so all you have to do is look it up and have a method of getting it to them. A pickup
that's
truck or leaf bags, they'd be perfectly fine if you could bring them to the transfer station.
That is on Fall River Avenue, and that is fairly close to the old gristmill restaurant.
Yeah, right
across the
across.
street.
Right across. Mhm.
Okay.
Sure.
Moving on to small appliances or
Okay.
electronics.
Sure.
Here's a small electric appliance, a
Yes.
fan that
It's
doesn't
a
work.
fan, right.
That has metal in it, has plastic in it, but where
Right.
does it go, Bill?
Again, it's a situation of what you'd be doing with the metals, like we did with the pipe and the block of iron. Those would all go to the same spot. They take these items, they recycle them. First they break them apart, and then they recycle them, and they go by weight. So it's a bulky item, but that's exactly how you should get rid of them.
All right. Electronics are a problem. I brought an old iPhone. The battery doesn't hold its charge anymore.
Right.
And I don't use it. I have my own updated iPhone. So
Okay.
what do we do with those old ones?
Well, the old phones, it's an easy fix too. Again, we at the DPW have a facility that we send them to, and you just bring them in, you can drop them off, and we send them away to be recycled. They recycled small electronic phones in particular. If you have something larger like laptop or computer, if you check with the big box companies like Best Buy, Staples is another one that sells them. You can check with Walmart. From time to time, they will offer a collection period where they will accept used electronic equipment, and they will go ahead and they will send it to a recycler.
Okay, just two other points about the phone. I think nowadays, if you buy a new phone and you have a working old phone, they'll give you credit. You've turned it in, and when you buy your new phone. Also, I think you can sell some electronics, like my MacBook Pro can be sold to a site online, and I believe some of them can also be donated online to different organizations. Lastly, that's an old one with a poor battery. I think some mobile phones can have the batteries replaced. Battery and Bulbs is a company that does some of them. They don't do all mobile phones, but they do some of them. Okay, we're almost finished this little tutorial. I have a can of paint, Bill, and that comes up a lot.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about paint. Okay, This particular one is latex paint, and most of the paint that's produced now is latex. It's water-based, and the way to get rid of them is that you have to allow them to dry out. Like I said, they're water-based, so you take off the lid, dry it out if you have old cans that have very little in it. Sometimes you have maybe a can that has half or 3/4, and if you try to dry it out, that's fine, but it's going to take a long time. If you want to get rid of it sooner than that, of course, what you do is you put in a drying agent. A good example of a drying agent would be kitty litter, and I've done this myself. You put in kitty litter to the top, and you seal it back up. Then it can be taken, you can actually put it in, as long as the top is tightly sealed so it won't leak and it won't fall off, you can actually put it in a trash bag and put it out with your trash.
All right, and of course, oil-based paint is a different matter altogether, right?
Right. Stain, oil-based paint, those types of items, those have to be held till hazardous waste day. Just put them aside, you're not using them. And like I said, once a year, they collect them all if you sign up for the collection process.
All right, let's mention two things. Paint preserves fairly well. I have paint that I've used that's been over 5 years old without any problem whatsoever. Also, I think I mentioned, Bill, that I used to live in Brockton, and there they had what was called a paint shop, where people came with their paint they didn't want. They dropped it off at the shop, and if there was a paint they wanted, they took it. It was very nice to have a way of exchanging it without throwing it away.
Right.
But so far in Seekonk, that's not something we have, but maybe in the future.
Well, there were thoughts to that effect. A few years ago, they actually had a bill passed that would go into effect, and they had to put a hold on it. The bill basically said you could bring the paint back to the facility where you bought it. And this had the blessing of the paint companies. We're talking latex paint now. They had the blessing of the paint companies that they would go ahead and pick it up, and then they would go ahead and use the paint for making new paint, or use the paint to mix with other paint, and that would really work to their advantage. That's extra paint that's not thrown away. Unfortunately, the small paint stores and companies said we don't have the capacity to go ahead and take the paint that people bring back to us, because a lot of times people buy multiple gallons of paint and they would have multiple gallons to bring back sometimes, like, oh, we didn't like the color, so we'll bring back the paint that we bought before. And so the bill basically was put on hold. But eventually we may get to that point where we have a facility where we can bring the paint and have it recycled in effect.
Yeah, that brings up the point again that recycling is a work in progress, and what is possible now may change and be better in the future. Okay, we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. Clothes and mattresses are two items that have now been under new regulations, and let's talk about that in a minute. There's a T-shirt there, Bill, if you want to pick it up.
Right.
Now,
Sure.
this particular one has, I think, a defect in it, and
Well,
a collar.
it has a collar problem, but that's not a problem with this particular item because it's clean, it's worn, and it's okay that it's worn, but you can go ahead and recycle this simply by taking it to one of the textile containers. We have textile containers at each of the public schools, and we have textile containers in front of the DPW. And you can bring them there, and they'll gladly take them. And we're working to get more companies involved in this process to find a spot where we can get these collected. Sometimes you can actually get your clothing and shoes picked up at your home by appointment. So check around for donations and the plan for donations. I know some stores, some charities will accept the clothing, and you can recycle it that way too. But they're basically saying that mattresses, box springs, and clothing and shoes are items that are no longer to be thrown away in the trash unless they're soiled, insect infested, stained. You just can't work with them, and those should be tossed away. But you want someone to make sure of that.
Okay, so
Okay.
if I could summarize, the clothing is recyclable unless it's very soiled, like with oil or something.
Right.
Even if it's not completely intact. This example, some rips and so forth. But it doesn't go in a recycle bin. You have to bring it to the other specialized bins for clothing, of which there are some, as he mentioned, the DPW, schools also have these bins. Shoes can be deposited there as well. Mattresses is a new regulation. You're going to hear more about mattresses in the future, what to do about them. But right now, the new law kicks in as of today, November 1st, and we'll be letting people know one way or another about the mattresses. I think I forgot two things. Before we talk about food, I think I forgot to mention, because it's down here, pizza boxes, Bill. We did get a notice about that. Now, this is a used pizza box with oil.
Okay. Here's the situation right now. With pizza boxes, obviously, they're made out of cardboard. Cardboard is recyclable. However, the issue is that you have food waste. Now, a lot of times, pizza boxes will have food left over inside. Those definitely cannot be recycled at all. You can put them in the trash because you won't be able to recycle them because of the food waste.
All right, but if the box is completely empty, it can be put in recycling.
If the box, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get everyone on the same page. So for the time being, with the fact that it does have a lot of oil in it, we are recommending that it be trashed.
Okay.
Soon, we'll be in a situation where we can go ahead and process this, but obviously, if there still is food remaining inside, that definitely has to go in the trash.
You could cut off the top.
You could cut off the top.
And put that in. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about food, Bill. We didn't bring any examples of that, but there are ways to reduce food trashing. One way is, of course, not to buy more food than you need. And another way is to compost. Is there composting run by the town?
No, there's no composting method run by the town right now. It's something that we're looking into. Eventually, there are some towns that are already on a system where the food is picked up at the residence, but it costs. I mean, people have to pay for that process to take place.
All right, so there's no town program, but there are commercial programs, one of which is called Black Earth.
Yes.
Black Earth, where you pay certain money, they'll come and pick up your composted food items, take it away, and then I think you get a discount or you get soil, Black Earth, in exchange, either at a discounted price or you get it free, but I think you got to pay for something.
Yeah, you'll be getting the compost back.
All right. Well, we're basically finished, right, Bill?
Right. I think we've covered all the points here as best as possible, and I hope that we've helped you out in what to do as far as getting things either in the trash where they belong or into the recycle bin where they belong. And then those items that don't fit in either one, know that there's a method as to getting rid of them, either through a charity or a specialty company where items can be brought and recycled, such as the metals, like we talked about. And eventually, like we said, it's still evolving, where we don't have so much waste.
All right, and again, that website, if you want to learn more about a specific item, is called Recycle Smart Mass, or MA, Recycle Smart MA. And you can put in an item and they'll tell you what they recommend. Okay, Bill.
Fine. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you.
Appreciate it.